Good evening, and welcome to Chicago Airways Horror Thursday segment. I am your host, Crowley. For those joining us on our Virgin podcast format, allow me to elaborate. Once every week on Thursday night, we have a victim of a horror encounter call in to disclose their experience. The popularity of the segment has resulted in a recorded version appearing on the very podcast service you use at this moment. Now, turn off the lights if you are at home. Look at the stranger on the train or the car following you too closely for a little too long. But, most paramount, look in the corners ignored by others for the horrors hidden in your everyday life. Viewer discretion is advised. Good evening, caller. Please state your full name and your relation to the horror.
Charlotte Heywood. I was a nurse during the Leafheart incident in Havre, Montana.
Leafheart. To our listeners unaware of Leafheart, officially, it never occurred. Yet stories have surfaced about a strange illness originating in the town of Havre's hospital. I was not aware there were any survivors.
When the government and local news lies, a lot of things go by unnoticed.
Please, Miss Heywood, enlighten us of your experience.
It was during the first 6 months of COVID. All the hospital staff were on duty to deal with the massive influx of patients. The rooms were overfull to the point we had to wheel extra beds into the hallway with rooms filled bed frame to wall. It was my 12th hour and 30th coffee. The other staffers had been there at least 9 hours. Emily for 15, I remember. The snowstorm interfered with phone signals, ensuring we had no idea how many patients would come or when. When we heard the wails of Leafheart, we thought it was someone crying over a family member. But as the voice inched closer to the hospital, it sounded worse. It sounded like someone speaking with an endoscope in her esophagus, each "help me," a fusion of pain and discomfort. Emily and I made sure our current patient was resting easy before we rushed outside to find whoever was loudly whimpering. The snowstorm made it hard to see where she was coming from. As she got closer, though, we could see it. The vine-like growths jutting out of her face and body. The thorns stuck into her arms and legs as the vine slithered along her neck. When she came into the light, we saw the growths had formed green, leaf-like shapes over the majority of her eyes, and vines had shoved itself down her throat and ears. She limped closer to the light of the hospital. Emily asked if it was human. I said she had to be. Emily trudged through the snow towards her. The "help me" squeals were still very present while I looked for an empty wheelchair. The patients and other staffers were hearing it too. Some of them fidgeted with every wail, others pretended not to hear it, their eyes darting to the entrance every time. When I arrived outside with the wheelchair, Emily held her hands out to Leafheart. Leafheart finally saw through her small slits and her leaf-like eye growths. She squealed, "Help me," the loudest yet, and grabbed Emily by her arm. Vines shot out to Emily's body, and thorned leaves impregnated themselves down her throat. She died quickly. I'm thankful that's all she had to experience from Leafheart. Leafheart whispered after her, "Where did she go?" Oblivious to the body in front of her, she struggled towards the hospital, her vine shoving Emily's corpse out of the way. "Help me, help me." She would not stop saying those words. A security guard asked, "Where's Emily?" He peeked outside and drew his gun. "Shut down the building," I told him. His breathing heavy and hands shaky, he pulled out his walkie-talkie. The automatic doors closed one last time. Leafheart was silent for a while. He asked me, "What is that?" I hushed him as she limped closer, her vines hissing like snakes around her, blood dripping from the wounds on her body. I wanted to help her. Her hands felt the automatic glass doors first. "Hello, is someone there?" I just did not know how to help her. The guard walked closer to her while she kept repeating, "Please help me." I tried to motion him with my head to sit back down. Jeffrey was always a good soul. Maybe it was just in his nature to try. He asked her, "What's wrong?" She answered, "She is hurting. Her arms, her legs, her throat, everything was in pain." He asked her if she could see clearly. She said no. "Does she know about the vines on her?" She frowned. "What vines?" The vines shot through the doors, impaling themselves down Jeffrey's throat. His eyes turned red, then burst into hollow, bloody shells. I ran deeper into the hospital and out of Leafheart's eye line. She shouted after me to wait. She doesn't know what's going on. Where did the man go? The other staffers and patients stampeded through the hallways. Leafheart was blocking the only entrance, the only exit. "Where is everyone? Please, please, I am in so much pain. Somebody help me." What could I do? Anyone who tried to help her died.
Do you believe she was in control of the growths? The vines?
No, it wouldn't make sense for her to hurt herself. I think she just really needed help.
Fascinating. What happened next?
Repetition. Sick, childish, game-like repetition. I pulled one of the guards with me into the ICU wing on the 3rd floor. It didn't stop us from hearing everything from below. She would go into a room wailing for help. The vines had the sound of fast-growing grass when it crammed down their windpipes. Some could shriek squelches longer than others. Poor things. Or someone would be running down a hall. We would hear their feet pitter-patter, pitter-patter, pitter. The vine flew to them and Leafheart called, "Please help me." We would then hear maybe a gurgle, maybe a scream, sometimes nothing. We just knew it was done when the body thudded to the floor, and Leafheart whispered, "Where did you go? Please, please, please just help me."
I am sorry to interrupt once more, but how could you hear whispers if you were not even present on the same floor?
I don't know.
Carry on.
Finally, she was walking up the stairs to us, heavy steps followed by thuds from her vines. The hallway, her begging, then someone dying, repeated until we saw it. Her shadow on the door to our ICU unit. The vine-like growths on her floating like demonic angels in her silhouette. She opened the door. The patient nearest to her was an amputee. He couldn't go anywhere else. She reached to him. "Help me." The now arm-thick vines covered his face while she begged. His hands forced into hers, tears dripping from his eyes over the vines shutting his mouth shut and tears forcing themselves out of the small holes in the leaves over her eyes. There was more blood coming from the thorns, tighter around her arms, and more blood from her mouth. So much more blood. When he died, she lurched to the next patient, Fred. He was there for pancreatic cancer. His family visited him every day. The kids, the grandkids, everyone came to hold his hand because they knew he would get better for his family. When Leafheart took his hand, "I'm hurting," she said. The vine stared at him. "Me too," he said. He died quickly, at least. It was just us and the last patient, Mrs. Wright. She wailed towards her, "Help me, help me, help me!" I grabbed the guard next to me's gun. I shot her. Again, again, again. She fell down to the floor. I checked the patient's pulses. Mrs. Wright was beating fast, but okay. The other two were not with us anymore. The hallway was carved in blood in dead bodies. Had a lot of friends there. The guard in the room called me to look back. The holes I shot into Leafheart attracted the tips of the vines, soaked themselves into her body, crawled like rats underneath her skin to each limb, finger, and toe. One root slithered up her neck. The leaves popped from her eyes. I'd never seen eyes so blue before. The root from inside popped them out, the green tentacles, the only inhabitants of her eye sockets. The vine from her mouth wormed out of the way, taking her tongue with it. It got up, unsteady, cracked its neck to look at me, a blood-soaked frown dripping from her toothless mouth. "You did not help me," it said in a soft-spoken voice. It convulsed towards me like a spider on broken legs. I ran through the hallway over the bodies of doctors and patients. It didn't run. It lunged. Again. It didn't know how to be human in its movements. It just knew how to be fast. I leapt over the stairs, 4, 5, maybe 6 at a time. Leafheart tumbled down them, bones cracking and skull bashed into inhuman features. The last staircase, it was running on her wrist, snapped into positions alien to human hands. I was on the ground floor. The exit was maybe 200 feet from me. The bodies of the dead, my only obstacle. I leapt over 1 or 2 corpses before they all started convulsing, some forcing themselves up on broken fingers, others with vines birthed through their toes. I sped up. A vine from a corpse gripped my ankle with thorns as Leafheart reached the ground floor. Its arm and hands pointing at me in spasms like a dying insect. A wordless howl forced through its dislocated jaw. More corpses rose. There were never this many people in the hospital before COVID. Now they were all corpses, jerking arms and legs to grab me, one leg protruding. Thorny vines grabbed me in the last few feet before the exit, where Leafheart killed Jeffrey. Leafheart was close now. Thorns growing out of the flesh between nails and fingers, its jaw dangling by a few muscles and tendons. Its mulch-wet howl more inside me than in the air. It clawed through the corpses, collectively slithering vines to hold me down. I saw Jeffrey's gun right next to me, the vine still around my ankle and the others a few feet closer every passing moment. It said my name. At least that is what I felt it say in my throat. Leafheart was a foot away from me. I could see the vines beating like a heart from her chest in rapid succession, tearing clothing and skin with every beat. I reached the gun and shot it in the Leafheart. The vines stopped tearing towards me, and the thorns around my ankle let go for a second. The 3 vines grabbed onto the same leg. I shot again. A vine pierced my calf. I missed Leafheart. The fire alarm went off. The sprinklers flooded the hallway, now red and white. Leafheart and its corpses paused for a second, sniffing at the falling water. I shot Leafheart one more time. She let go. She tried to reach out again, slowed by her drenched vines, I think. I shoulder-checked the last remaining bits of glass in the door and fled into the snowstorm. Behind me, something hit the doors. hard. I didn't stop. The cold hugged me like a body bag, and the blood dripped into every footprint. I struggled up the road when 2 lights cut through the night. I limped into the middle of the road and flailed my arms until it stopped. Military. Inside, a professor and soldiers. They asked me if there were any survivors. I said no. A missile hit the hospital a few minutes later.
Thank you, dear listener, for tuning into the first podcast version of Chicago Airwaves Horror Thursday segment. If it is not too great a hassle, I humbly ask you to give a positive rating on the podcast service you are using and tell a friend to help us grow. Until next week, I am Crowley, and search the dark corners of your life. Who knows what might be lurking out of sight.